Thank you.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody to the Monday, May 16th, 2022 PVC meeting. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 main topics, 5 main topics, excuse me, and including the approve the minutes and then also any other business that might be at the end. We do have a quorum, so we might as well start with the first topic, which is the approve the minutes of the last meeting. I was not able to attend. So I would just ask for a motion to approve the last meeting minutes.
Move we accept the minutes from last meeting?
Yep. Are you proposing that, George?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thanks. So do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Okay. I will do roll call, given the virtual meeting. I do not know if all of you were there. I will not vote because I was not there. So I just ask because I will do the roll call if you vote yay or abstain because you were not there. So Richard?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Roy?
Abstain.
Lynn?
Abstain.
George?
Aye.
Okay, great. I believe that's enough for a vote. Catherine?
Well, I think so. If the minutes have not changed, yes, we don't need a quorum on that, but yes.
Okay, great. With that, then I will move to the public safety complex and turn it over to you, Ken.
All right, share my screen here. And find my agenda. There we go. All right. If you've been by the by headquarters, you'll have seen that the plaza is 99% complete. There's some punch list work still undergoing on the site and in the plaza.
I was looking for the other 1%. I couldn't find it.
You're looking for the look under the caps of the flagpoles, and you'll see the other 1%, George.
I'll tell you what, it looked
There's some-
beautiful when I saw it. It looked gorgeous.
We're still waiting on the shelving for PD. They're telling us still that it's going to ship on the 11th of June, although our supplier says they've experienced stuff with other properties. I mean, other projects rather, and don't hold your breath for it to ship on the 11th. So we'll see what happens when we get closer to the date. We're still looking to schedule to finish up the VAV boxes in the training room downstairs and the main lobby. And we're also looking to schedule the interview and booking area audio and recording on the police side. So that in a nutshell is what we got left. Any questions?
Yeah, Ken, that VAV, that was the one that was missing, correct? That they were debating whether to add it or not, or if they needed it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one in the lobby, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, the ACL, I think the last two are the only two new ones on here, I believe. The recording at booking, the booking room downstairs, family booking as they refer to it, was not originally set up to have any kind of recording. And PD asked that they have audio and camera recording on that. And then the HVAC and lighting controls, this is the tie-in the two subnet IT systems so that HVAC and lighting can be controlled off of the BMS. So any questions with the ACL?
Just a general one.
Okay.
We have some items on here, and I'm wondering when they can be closed out so that we know about how much money we have left. For example, the COVID one or the
The
other. The
COVID,
HCA.
we're not expecting we're not expecting anything new for COVID. And as we've said all along, that money just won't end up being quote unquote borrowed. So that money's it's there, but I guess you could say you could close it out, but it really just comes off the total, if you will.
It
And
becomes a
the,
part of the contingency that we have left.
No, it does not. Remember, we've said all along, we're not going to spend that money. That's going back to the town. Because it
I
was
understand that.
given to us for COVID costs.
I understand that.
And that's the
My
only
point-
thing it'd be spent on.
I understand that. My point is that that money would be available to rescind if we're not going to use it.
Correct, correct.
So for
And
example,
the HC,
go ahead.
I was going to, well, if you got another on that, because I was going to move on to the reconciliation.
Well, for example, the potential Griffin claim, is that a claim or isn't it a claim? We ought to know at this point. The job's just about over.
It is. Miles and I reviewed it last week. We think we're closing it out but I've had conversations with Chris Heap, town council, and Miles has got to go back to his folks and figure it. But yes, there is a claim and it is legitimate, and we're trying to settle it for less than the value that they want.
Okay, so they've submitted an amount,
Yes,
ballpark figure of that?
their original claim was, I believe it was 168. It's now down to 93. And we're looking to settle for something less than the $50,000 that's shown here.
And they have backup for this that could prove that they
Yes.
spent that?
Yes, they do. Yep.
Okay,
It's all because of scheduling, George, because the project, a third of the amount is basically because the town didn't issue the demo permit on time.
Yeah.
That was 25 of the, I think it's 77 days that's in the claim.
okay.
25 of them were the demo permit, and then the schedule as it continued to get pushed, that added to their costs.
And the 309,000 HCA reconciliation?
That's the most it'll be. Hopefully we get it below that, but that looks like right now that's gonna be our max exposure. And that's right around what it's been since, I think we first put it on there, it was 288, I think. So it's been dancing around that $300,000 number since we put it on there, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months ago. I don't remember.
There's no way to reduce that?
Which we're working on that now, but it's not gonna get reduced a heck of a lot. This is mostly allowance overruns. The actual number is well over 500,000, George, for allowance overruns. But this is what we've managed to get it down to.
Okay, any schedule for when that's going to be resolved?
Well, we're trying to finalize it as we get all these piddly little things out of the way. But I would not think we could truly finalize the number probably for another couple months, till we're absolutely sure everything has been covered and accounted for.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Ken, why don't we go to the,
All right.
Mr. Chairman, one other question, if I may.
yeah,
Sure.
Richard?
Ken, just getting back to the potential Griffin claim, was when the Carpenters group walked off the job back in, I guess it was a year and a half ago, maybe, is that also a factor contributing to this particular claim?
No,
Remember?
no, it's
Okay,
not.
good. Okay.
Okay, Ken.
All right, as I said in my email, the two departments, police and fire, have put in requests for some various equipment and furniture. I laid them out here. They can, respective chiefs, I don't know if John is on or not. Dennis can certainly speak to his, but as I noted in my email, we have money both in the owner's equipment line and the FF&E line. But this is above and beyond what had been talked about way back when the budgets were put together for equipment, furniture, and the like. So I thought it proper to bring it to the committee to get their feel and whether this is something they want to go down the road with or not. The one thing I would say is if there's a flavor to absolutely not, we're not going to spend any more. The first item under furniture there in the middle of the page, the break room table, that truly needs to happen because the table isn't high enough to slide the chairs under. It's a like a high top table you'd see in a bar, and it's the high top type chairs, but the high top table isn't high enough to sit on the high top chairs. So if there's if there's any one thing that needs to be done out of this whole list, it would be that one, just from a functionality standpoint. So
Ken.
I'll ask, I don't think we need a formal vote on this, Stuart. I may be wrong, but I'd like to get everyone's thoughts. If everyone's amenable to this 35, 56, 57,000 for furniture and equipment, great. We'll proceed down that road, but if people are a little gun shy about it.
Yeah,
we
can you
certainly
just
talk about it.
basically, from the standpoint of these numbers, where you said there's already line items that they can go against FF&E and owner equipment, I think you said.
No,
What are those?
there's money in the FF&E budget, Ken?
Yes.
And how
So
much
my
is
que-
that?
What did I don't remember now. I said it in the email. I had it in the email.
Yeah, I think we should just take a look at the budget line items that they're going against.
I think in Ken's email, it said from a funding standpoint, there's 39,000 left in the owner's equipment line and 150,000 left in FF&E.
So there's about 190,000 left, and you're proposing to spend 56,000? I mean, these are
Approximately,
legitimate,
yes.
these are legitimate categories, and we always end up buying certain things at the end of the job when we discover, well, that really wasn't included, but we have money in the FF&E and it makes sense to do it. I don't have a problem with things like that. I did have one surprising concern about the $5,000 filing system that was shown there out of the 20,000. I'm wondering, that's an awfully expensive.
Well, there's three of
system, isn't
them.
it? So they're
I believe there's
1,600
three of
bucks
them,
each.
George.
I see.
Approximately, yes. Yeah. I'd have to go back and look at the.
So these are filing systems for storing evidence or stuff like that? I'm just-
No, these are for, let's see which one, the police, I'm sorry, my apologies. I thought you were talking about the community policing storage towers.
No,
There's
talking
two common rooms, community policing and detectives, and there's actually a third one. Community policing, detectives, and Miles, help me out. What's that third common room? Family services. And they kind of, the storage towers that we had and the storage files that we had, they kind of jiggered them around into different rooms. And when everything was laid out and the furniture was done, they determined they needed 3 more for community policing on the storage towers, and in patrol sergeants, they needed storage files because there's 1 for each of the 2 patrol sergeants.
I see. So these are expensive files. And then the installation, is that for those files
The installation is for everything.
or everything? Okay.
So all that furniture is being installed for the 2,200 bucks.
Yeah.
Delivery, taking it off the truck, bringing it in, setting it up.
Okay. I'd say if it's within its budget, whether we vote on it or not, I think it's acceptable as long as, you know, there's a budget line item that is left. Even though we didn't have it in the original list, you can't have everything in there.
Roy, you have a question?
So, yeah, my question is on this list. So, yeah, I want to be supportive of the things we need, but which of these would really be operating expenses? And when I see like, all this money on printer stands, like, I'd love like a refinement of this list. It's to go through like what's really needed that's related to the new building and what is what's the need to have and what's the nice to have type of stuff.
We went through that exercise, going through it, Roy. What they originally had anticipated were the printers were going to go on various tables and desks, and there's just not the room. It just impinges on the use of the desks and the tables in the various offices. So they came up with this. Had they had the ability to set up a desk, if you will, prior to ordering all of the furniture to see how it all laid out, these probably would have been on the original purchase list.
I just have a hard time with over 4,000 in printer stands. Like, it doesn't make sense to
Now,
me.
all I can tell you is that's what, when they went through their analysis, that's what they came with. John's not here, so he can't speak to it. But I went through that analysis with them. I'm comfortable that they're not asking for something that is crazy. It just happens to be because the size of the printers, some of the printer stands that like that one for $2,000, it's a big printer. And it just, it's not like you can just put it on a little old, it's not a little old desktop printer.
I get that, but I mean, part of it is every now and then like I say, we're spending a lot of money and this is really not going to make a big difference in the day. I understand that. But I'm sitting here saying there's better solution than 4,000 for printer stands that we could get. Now, I'm not suggesting that printers don't need stands. It doesn't sound to me like, why don't we just get a copy machine that rolls on the floor? We could probably buy a whole copy machine for that. So some of it
they do have those, but you got to, if you understand the layout of the facility, you'd be asking people to walk from one end of the floor to the other to get to a common printer. The printers have been purchased.
Ken,
So if you
I'm
don't,
not, you're not, what I'm saying is if you say you've done it, then I will accept that. But it feels like if I was running a business and somebody came to me and said, we need to buy 4 printer stands and we're going to spend $4,500, I would tell them to do something else. So that's an easy one for me to analyze. You tell me they need a break room table. Absolutely. Right. Chairs. Yeah. Those things make perfect sense to me. So I just want to make sure that we've drilled down that there aren't better, it's not a lot of money and I'll let it go. But I have, I just want to make sure that, can you scroll up a little bit so I can just see the top part of the list? I don't have it open on my computer. And none of these things are coming from the old stations, right? Nothing left.
no, this is all, you got to remember, fire never had their own, really didn't have a true mechanics bag. And police didn't either. They jury rigged one of the bays at the old police station. So this is, they've brought over, like, for instance,
I'm good.
Police department has a tire balancer, but they didn't have a tire changer.
Okay, all right. I made my points. I appreciate everything everybody's doing.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think isn't one other thing, Ken, isn't there a government price list, or isn't there some sort of pricing that we go up against? It's not like we're just going anywhere.
These are all state listed items.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, great. All right.
Yep.
It
It all falls under a state.
Yeah. So I don't think we need a vote, but I think we should acknowledge, at least in a minute, that it looks like it's about a third of the remaining budget that's being consumed for this, and everybody's seen, there's no major disagreements here or any disagreements. Is that fair to say, folks? So if anybody's got a real disagreement, just raise your hand and voice. Otherwise, I think they should just go forward. Okay. All right. Okay, Ken. So appreciate you bringing that to the committee. to have a review. Do you want to move to the voting items now?
Yes, we can.
I believe the first one needs to be the change order. Number 40.
Yes.
These have been discussed. I believe there's a small amount. I don't know if anybody has any concerns, but I put forth the change order number 40 coming out of the general contracting budget for $4,005. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second,
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Chief Condon.
Aye.
I don't think Chief Schlittler is here.
No, he's not.
And the chair is aye. Okay. Let's go to requisition number 40. The general contracting budget for Consigli for $883,274.72. I put forth that for approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Chief Condon,
Aye.
chair is aye. All right, I'm gonna group basically 6 invoices coming out of the miscellaneous budget. I put forth the UTS of Mass materials test in April 2022 for $520. A PODS rental March for $114.99. A PODS for rental of April for $114.99. This invoice I'm going to read off is not in any of the emails. It's added, but it's a PODS invoice for a moved 80 Chestnut and final pickup, $288.99. Rist Frost Shumway commissioning for Fire Station 2, March 2022 for $728. And finally, Rist Frost Shumway commissioning for the public safety on March 2023 for $2,366, all coming out of the miscellaneous budget for a total of $4,132.97. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you. I think that was Roy. Any questions? Irwin. Sorry, Irwin.
Aye.
Any questions? Seeing none, coming to the vote. Richard?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Okay. 5 invoices put forth for the technology budget. Harbor Networks, remount the wall phone for $450. Okers for Aruba Wireless, Police Department and Fire Department, $6,225. Okers for audiovisual equipment installation for $7,000. Another invoice from Okers from audiovisual equipment installation, $9,312.50. And lastly, Okers audiovisual equipment installation for $687.50. Total of $23,675 coming out of the technology budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, George. Any questions?
I do have a question. Are we
George?
nearly finished with this, with them? Or are there still more invoices
With the
coming?
Okers,
Catherine,
there's still a little bit more.
is there? Okay,
The IT portion of the Okers is complete, but the AV portion is not.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin.
Aye.
Chief Condon,
Aye.
chair is aye. Okay, last 3 invoices coming out of the FF&E budget. First one's W. Mason for recliner, $1,970. Second invoice, WP Mason mattresses for $1,635.28. And Robert Lord and Company shelving, $6,441.96 for a total of $3,605.28 coming out of the FF&E budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
aye,
George,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
Chief Condon,
Aye.
chair is aye. Okay, I believe that's all. Ken, Catherine,
Yes.
Yep.
okay, great. Any other final words, questions regarding the public safety project? Okay, we will close that down. Thank you to the user group. And we'll move to the Ridge Hill demolition. Is that going to be you, Hank?
Yes, both Ken and myself.
Okay.
And Ken, do you have the general bid tabulation?
Yeah. Hang on a sec.
Well, he's getting that together. We did get the bids in. They all came in high. And if we, there's only one, the low bidder, which if we accept the deduct alternate would be within our budget. Although, so there, the low bid of 575, that's $575,575. With a deduct alternate of number one for 48,500 would get us into the cost range that would be affordable within the current budget, but it would only leave us with approximately a 4% contingency. And we had, Ken, if you jump to that summary, perhaps. I don't know if it's there.
Here somewhere. Yeah, it's within the budget, Hank.
Yeah, so we had previously between the
You can see the contingency balance here. The 74,000 approximately. And that represents a small percentage of the total.
So we had a general construction budget previously of 462,235. We had 10% contingency on top of that for another 73,957, giving us a total project budget with all the contingency of 536,000. When you take the low bidder and you deduct the deduct alternate, you end up with 527,000 in order to award that contract. And that would leave about 18,000, which is about 4% within the contingency. We had explored with town manager whether it'd be possible to use emergency funds And those funds which the Finance Committee controls can only be presented or offered to budgets associated with the various departments. So for instance, the snow budget, if we go way over, they can go into the emergency reserve funds. In this instance, we also checked to see whether we could reduce the, negotiate to reduce the low bidder amount. And that's not possible within the Chapter 149 bidding laws. So the two options really open at this point are, one, to accept the bid, proceed with a 4% contingency, and hope there aren't too many major issues, or to reject all the bids, go back and rebid the project in September, end of the summer, so that we have bids in hand prior to a special town meeting on October 24th, and then request additional funding as needed at town meeting. The other, and those really are the two options that are open at this point to us. You may recall that when we were going through the original design and the original cost estimates, FinCom and others said, oh, that's way too high. How can it possibly cost that much? And the cost estimate was brought down. We did value engineering, but it clearly, the market has changed since that time, which was a year ago.
We had two questions.
When we did the,
Lynn,
when we
and
did the
got-
estimations, I was gonna say,
So-
when we did the estimations a month or two ago, the estimators came in about 62,000 above what we originally had, and that was still roughly 50,000 below the low bid that came in. So the environment is such that we did all right with Hillside with both the GC bid and the file sub bids, but this one came in along lines of what we kind of expected or thought we might be getting in today's marketplace. One thing to keep in mind when Hank was talking about the option to go with the low bid and hope we don't run into any problems. Remember, that is going with the low bid less demolishing the garage. So we're not getting the full scope of the original project in that instance.
Yeah. So if I may, I know we've got two questions on the table. I think the real question is, well, let's get those. Lynn, do you want to go first, and then I'll call you on George?
I was gonna ask what Hill recommended on this, because I would say that 4% is very low going into this, potentially scary low. But everything I'm seeing in the marketplace is that these types of numbers are gonna continue into early of 24. All the projects we've been estimating are not coming down, and the estimates are not coming down, and the numbers seem to be pushing out into that Q1. So I'm wondering if Hill had a perspective on that.
I did not ask him that specific question, but consensus previously was we would prefer going into any demolition or renovation project with a more than 10 or 15% contingency. So a 4% contingency is very risky.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, waiting till September, because if you really do need that number, waiting till September, I'm not confident you're gonna see anything better, is the concern.
it wasn't so much getting something better, Lynn, it was being able to do the whole project and have a sufficient contingency. I mean, I'd be thrilled if we got the same number, but just go back to town meeting and say, hey, we need another 150, 160, 170. The one thing we did discuss is by doing it, by not having a construction start until November, there's the possibility that we may get more than the 3 bids. We had 9 contractors at the bidders meeting. We only got 3 bids. And the thinking was maybe the other ones may be too busy now for a start date now, but maybe less busy going into next year. You know, who knows? Who knows? They may, maybe it may be a little bit more advantageous, but even at that, even if you get the same numbers or maybe even slightly higher numbers, but at least the whole project is being done with the original scope and a sufficient contingency. But we can't accomplish that now.
Understood.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. George?
A couple of things. I still believe that number is too high, and I think we're a victim of the current circumstance in 2 parts. One, we only got 3 bidders. I believe most contractors in the commercial area are very, very busy. The last thing they want to do is tear down a couple of buildings. And, I think that those numbers are numbers that they threw into the arena and said, if they buy this, we'll do the job. But we're super busy. This is almost all this work. In fact, all this work, I think, is very doable in the winter. Is that not correct, Ken?
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of what I was driving at, is if we wait until
Right.
the fall, they may not be as busy. But I can't
Right.
say, I have no idea what's on all of these contractors' plates. Now, that being said, these are all demo contractors. We're not
Right.
asking, general contractors, yeah, they're busy. But the demo contractors, their business kind of goes in spurts. So who knows what we'll get if we put it out 3 months,
almost-
4 months from now.
In almost all of the projects, unless you've got a greenfield site, you got a demolition issue. And those guys have to be in and out in no time. They're very, very tight on their amounts. So they're super busy, generally speaking. But anyway, I think the idea of pushing it off to fall, winter is a very good idea. I'm not willing to even consider it with a 4% contingency. Not at that site. We have no idea what's under the ground there, and I'm not willing to take that risk. I want a 15% contingency on this, and I'd like to get the whole scope of work done.
Okay, thanks, George. Richard?
Mr. Chair, just one, first of all, I agree with the comments that were just made regarding the contingency and perhaps pushing this out to the wintertime. I do have a question though about the deduct of the removal of the demolition of the garage. Certainly the main house, the main building, we know that it's deteriorating rapidly. It's an attractive nuisance. Couldn't the same be said about the garage? And is it really wise to consider not demolishing the garage at this time, or whenever we do get to the main project?
The garage roof and some of the wall areas certainly need some maintenance. It has not been maintained probably for a decade. I should say no improvements have been done on the exterior for the past decade or longer. The house, I think, is a greater liability. There are fewer windows on the garage, and garage doors are in pretty good shape. And it has been functioning for storage, particularly for the summer program where they put bollards and tables and everything out and planters out for restaurants in the downtown area. So it has functioned as raw storage. But you're right, it'd be best to take both buildings down.
Thank you.
So at this stage, it sounds like there's the contingency of concern, wanting to take all pieces down, and that by potentially rebidding, we can get a secondary look at the cost. The only risk is at this stage of the game is probably, I think it was Ken saying fuel outside of this conversation, but really some of the hard parts of the bid won't necessarily change. It's more of the variable costs that might be cost. I'm just saying that generally. So Hank or Ken, if you want to make a comment about that, but it sounds like we should wait, get a rebid that can then enable that rebid to go in front of the town meeting to cover all costs for the demolition of both buildings. Also, did the town manager and others also voice the desire to have both buildings down, Hank?
That's correct.
Okay, so with the contingency and the desire to have everything done, it seems to me that the committee is leaning towards a recommendation of go out to rebid and position it for fall town meeting to address any issue with additional cost to cover. Is that a fair summation?
I think so.
Yep.
Don, I don't know if you have any advice on this?
No, I would agree. I think given the market we're in, I agree with Lynn. I don't see it settling down anytime soon. But to go at this project, first of all, not meeting your full scope, and then second of all, not meeting your full scope and having really an underfunded contingency, I think it's way too risky, especially if you have an opportunity to fully fund it in the fall with new bids.
Any other comments from the committee? I know, George, you have your hand up. I don't know if that was left
Oh,
over.
no,
or-
I'm sorry.
No
I'm
problem.
sorry.
Just want to make sure we're covering. Okay. Is that that's what I'm going to suggest. Hank?
No, that's clear direction. I don't think we need a vote on this, but we'll proceed
Okay.
accordingly.
Well, you might need a vote.
I think we should have a
Basically-
vote because it's a rebid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
So I think I'll put the motion on the table from the dialogue here is that we vote to rebid this project in time for special town meeting if additional funds are needed, but to rebid to ensure we get full costs for both buildings, full scope, and facilitate a 15% budget.
It's kind of given,
Excuse me,
but I think you
contingency.
also ought to say that you're rejecting the bids because of cost.
Okay, so let's rephrase that. So we have a vote to reject the bids for the hillside demolition project and to rebid the project to ensure the full scope and cost and do it in time to ensure there's 15% contingency in the cost and we could bring it to that special town meeting if necessary to request additional funds.
Just one
Richard?
correction. You said hillside. You meant Ridge Hill.
Ridge Hill, thank you. Richard, you have your hand up. You want
Yeah,
to read this?
just a point of information, Mr. Chair, is there any particular language we need to build into the motion just to simply note that kind of best interest of the town type of phraseology? I'm not sure. I would look to the professional staff on that, but I want to just make sure that the motion is clear and that it states the reasoning for the rejection of all bids.
I think that's fair. I mean, should we do two motions here? One to
No, I think one will do it.
okay, fine. So I guess to rephrase that is the motion on the table is to reject the bids for the Ridge Hill demolition due to high cost and inability to cover 15% contingency and full scope. and to rebid the project to get full cost and 15% contingency. You want to give it a try, Richard?
Well, I think you've got it. I think I would just simply add somewhere a phrase like, and that it would be in the best interest of the town to rebid or something to that effect,
Okay.
just to make
Fine.
sure that it's clear on the record.
Are you ready, Catherine, to add that? So in the best interest of the town, it would be to rebid the project.
Yep.
To capture the full cost plus 15% contingency and have it ready to present to special town meeting if additional funds are required. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
Okay.
That way you've covered yourselves as to why you're rejecting the bids,
Mhm.
and you've got a plan for what comes next.
All set, Catherine? Okay, perfect. All right. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye,
Erwin,
Aye.
chair is aye. Okay, so with that, Hank, we'll close down the Ridge Hill demolition and we'll move to the Emery Grover.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. Wait, we have a, is Ann on?
Yes, we have one voting item for the hillside. No, yes, we have one Ridge Hill demolition invoice here, correct, Hank?
Yeah, and while we have, before Ann goes, there's a school master plan invoice that I'd also like to get her vote on.
So can we do the Ridge Hill demolition and then right when we finish up Emery Grover, we can do the Emery Grover invoice as well as the hillside
Yeah.
renovation and school master?
Yep, that sounds good.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, so let's just close out the Ridge Hill with one invoice for the Project Dog electronic bid hosting for $764.22 coming out of the miscellaneous budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to vote. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
aye,
Erwin,
Aye.
chair is aye. Okay,
And
that
Barry.
closes out Ridge Hill.
Barry also gets to vote on that one.
Barry?
Yes. Aye.
There you go. All right. Legit. Sorry about that. All right. So that's Ridge Hill. And then let's move to the Emery Grover. Hank?
Yes, and we have been progressing with the design approvals for the Emery Grover project. I'm going to ask Deborah Robinson to share with you the minor adjustments that the designer has come up with in response to specific comments from the design review board. I should note that we first met with the design review board. We then met with the planning committee. They then, or both of those groups then recommend to the ZBA, whom we're going to on Thursday, who will be having the public hearing on the project. And the planning board recommended approval and acceptance of all the waivers that were being requested within that application. And those comments were forwarded to the ZBA, and we'll be going through that approval process on Thursday evening. So Deborah, maybe you want to share your screen and just show those minor changes so the committee is up to date on the design.
So, and I think you all received this package that was sent to ZBA. So all the civil drawings were submitted and no changes to those. All of our changes were related to addressing the design review board comments. So this sheet, which is the landscape improvement plan, and I'll go ahead and, oops, zoom in. Oops, a little too much. Okay, hold on, sorry. One of the comments was at the front of the building at Highland Avenue. There is where we have the three park, let me know if you can't see this. We have the 3 parking spaces off of the existing drive at the north end. There was a request for some more plantings to screen those parking spaces. So what the landscape architect came up with was some areas of plantings to the south of the parking spaces. There was a question of why didn't we put some more in this corner?
Deborah, could you blow that up, please?
Sure.
A little bit more, sorry, thanks.
Okay. And I can zoom down and give you the names if anybody wants the names of the plants. There was a question, why didn't we put some more plants in this trapezoidal area as well to help shield from the north the parking spaces? And the reason was because of the cars trying to back out and turn here, that the thought was that some plantings might interfere with the views to seeing the street and seeing the cars. So we could always come back at a later date and put some more in, but the recommendation by the landscape architect, for starters, was to just do some plantings along the south edge to shield those spaces. And then also we have, and I will zoom in again, here down at the south end of the site, also along Highland, where we have the transformer. They added some plantings around that to help to start to shield that a little bit. So those are the only changes to the landscape plan. Moving to the architectural, the comments, there's basically 3 comments on the architecture. One had to do with the rooftop dormer. The second had to do with the planter at the front of the building. And the third had to do with the addition at the rear of the building. And so we're reissuing the plan sheet just with those areas clouded to indicate we did make some changes to those. And when we go into the details, hold on a second, sorry. On the elevations, the front elevation, I'll try and zoom in a little more on that. We're showing where we had the infilled opening at the center arch. And the existing granite steps coming up to that, and then a granite infill. We put some freestanding planters in here that will sit on the steps and will drain at the underside, so there won't need to be any kind of drainage through a fixed architectural piece. And there's a product that will allow it to maintain water inside there, so it shouldn't need any maintenance irrigation. The dormer, and I'll show you in the 3D view as well, but the size of the dormer hasn't changed. We changed the configuration of the louvers a little bit. Previously, we had more of a continuous louver with breaks, vertical breaks to create some scale. And now we made more of a panelized system that's a little more reminiscent maybe of the square shapes of the fenestration. And then it'll be solid metal where it comes into a triangle against the building. So that's the front facade. On the south facade, where we see the back of the addition, what we've done is we have taken the trash enclosure, and rather than having a building and then a wood fence enclosure butt up against it. We've made it into more a unified piece, and it'll all be part of the architecture. The trash enclosure won't be a landscape element. It'll be part of the sort of a continuation of the addition. And previously we were indicating more schematically a standing seam metal enclosure. Here we've started to look at making it a little more interesting by having a varied width to standing seam panels and a little bit of a detail where the roof pops up and then it's open over here at the trash enclosure. And we can see that, so that from the straight on front elevation, you can see the top of that enclosure through the south portico. I will try and zoom in a little bit more on this one. The north facade here, again, the panels, and we increased the size of the panels and made them square. And we think that's gives a little more scale, and it feels appropriate to the building. It's modern without being too distracting. Again, the intent will be to not draw attention to that. It'll be painted the same color as the slate roofing. And then on the rear, the straight on facade, you see the side view of the trash enclosure, which will be clad in metal again. And the 3D views of this, I'll zoom in. Just with the line weights, it looks very dark here, but I think that's the view from street level. From the north, the view from street level from the south, you just see the little piece of it. And again, the planters here sitting on the steps, a little view of the addition at the south. So those were the changes to the drawings. Those have been submitted to the ZBA for the meeting on Thursday.
Any questions? Barry?
My only question is the metal panels that you're now going to enclose the where the trash is, like this metal structure. This is an aluminum type metal you're talking about that's painted?
Yeah, I mean, it's a factory painted, it's a prefabricated coated panel. So this view is just wasn't in the original set, so we didn't include, didn't include this view in the resubmission, and it won't, for some reason, it won't zoom here.
I'm thinking of course, I'm looking at this as an operator, and I'm looking at the damage that's going to be done to these panels over time and replacing them or repairing them, and how much money it would cost, versus a wooden type structure. But that's my only, when I think of these metal aluminum panels that probably cannot take much abuse like a wood or is inexpensive as replacing or painting wood, if there's some things that are damaged. That's why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, and just one of the details that's not quite in here yet. So we're showing the metal panels just on the exterior. The inside of the trash enclosure will just be the CMU, and the gates will be painted steel, solid tubular steel posts. Probably what we'll do at the outside corners that are exposed and could be exposed to being hit by a truck would be to add like an angle corner, a steel corner.
Right, the areas that get the most abuse. Okay.
At the outside corners here, and the one, maybe even here, just where a truck could hit it. Then against the building, we were having bollards there.
Okay, Thank you.
And making this opaque, so I mean, assuming people don't want to see into the trash enclosures.
Right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So actually two quick questions, one on the front elevation and one on the rear elevation. On the front elevation, I think there was a notation about the clock face, what the materials are being changed or recommended for change. Could you comment on that?
1 second.
I thought it seems on one of the drawings, something, there was a notation about a change in the, per the design review process.
Oh, that was, there's so many meetings, I'm losing track a little bit about which meeting said what, but yes, and if I can pan over. So I think our previous version of the rendering looked more, and let me just, I'll get to the note here. Yes, the note does say, and this, so this note actually should have been clouded. The previous version of this had more of a flat panel over the clock face, which is what is there, and it kind of looks like an applied panel over the clock face. And what we're saying now is we're gonna take that off, and the edge will be forward, and then there'll be a slight recess to the face that will have some kind of a graphic to be determined. Whether it could be just more of a solid, a darker color, or it could be some other kind of logo or some kind of artwork. So we'll own like a vinyl, something or other there. But yes, that was a little bit of a change to that
Okay.
piece.
And then on the rear elevation, apologies if I missed this in previous drawings, but I see that on the fenestration on the second level, I guess that would be the meeting room level. The leftmost and rightmost arch window areas remain bricked up, and wonder if you just comment on why that is.
So what's there now, which was the original when this was the auditorium, the top windows, the half rounds, are the same as you're seeing here.
Okay.
Where the 4 center ones had glass and the 2 on the ends were filled solid. And then all of the rectangular ones below were filled solid.
Okay.
So our change is to open up all of the large rectangular ones. This is the going into the superintendent's suite here, the superintendent's, the conference room, and then offices. And this is, I think, a room that belongs to the finance group. But that's the change. So the idea was to not do work at this upper window where we didn't need to.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Other updates, Hank or team?
No, we'll just give a brief update on Hillside. We are proceeding with contract signatures with JJ Cardosi, who are the low bidders. And we've had an initial meeting with them. We've talked about long lead items. They've set up a Procore platform for our review and approval of their submittals. Jeremy Tobin, who can wave at us, is joining the BH+A team during construction. And I think our initial discussion with JJ Cardosi went well. They seem to be very comfortable with moving forward rapidly on the project, and didn't really have any questions of substance. I'm sure we'll get into those as we get into the formal approvals. We are still waiting for the 20-day wait period following the approval by planning. And that 20-day wait period will be over just prior to Memorial Day. So once we get that planning approval filed at the Registry of Deeds, then planning department can issue their letter to the building department, and contractor can get his building permit to proceed. We've already introduced them to the building inspector, and they're proceeding with the digital submittals. Gene, I'm sure you're aware of their digital submittal process now.
Yes.
And so they've, even without the building permit application in, they're beginning to review some of the documents, so that hopefully that building permit can be issued rapidly. And we're still working out a few details with town council about the builder's risk insurance, and whether it's required for the entire building versus just the amount of the contractor's bid. And George, I'm sure you'll remember that at high school expansion, it was just for the scope that the contractor was responsible for, not the entire building.
That's correct.
And the amount that we had from Consigli on the public safety building was significantly larger, but it really covered the work, the scope of the work in progress at any one time during that project. So we're continuing that discussion, and that may be something we have to come back with on a change order basis, or it may be something that the town takes out directly if the town insurer does not cover the building during the construction. And other than that, I think it's the various voting items that we have both for Emery Grover and Hillside, and then also the school master plan, if we could.
Three items to vote. We'll start with the Emery Grover first. So we have an invoice from BH&A for the March 2022 services for $164,684 coming out of the architecture budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay, that's the Emery Grover. Let's go to the Hillside invoice. Also BH&A invoice for March 2022 services for Hillside for $114,000 coming out of the architecture budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hear none, see none, come to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Okay, and the last one is for the school master plan. That is for Dora Whittier of March 2022 services for $8,110 coming out of the architecture budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote. Richard?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Michael, do you vote on this one?
I'm going to just inherit the position since Aaron, who was on the, who was our rep for the project, is not on the committee anymore. So I will vote on it. And if we need to make it official, I can do that at some point. But
Okay,
he stepped out. Obviously, he's no longer on the committee. So
Yeah.
I will fill in.
okay. And your
Aye.
vote is? Thank you. Ann?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Okay. With that said, we only have one more invoice, which is the Jack Cogswell building. But first, anything left on the Emery Grover Hillside discussion here? If there is none, we'll bring it to a close and thank you to the user group. Okay. If I may, I would like to just get this last invoice taken care of, and then we'll go to the next item, which is the overall project. So if I may, I'd like to put forth the Eversource invoice for the Jack Cogswell Storage Building for engineering design services regarding the solar effort for $3,937. That's coming out of the miscellaneous budget. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you, George. Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
and the chair is aye. Okay, with that said, could we shift to the future projects and studies, Hank, which is a list that you sent out, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, on that last vote, is Barry a representative, Catherine?
For Jack Cogswell,
Yeah,
I don't recall.
okay. Well, we have sufficient quorum.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So I sent out a master list that includes both the current projects and the proposed projects. And the proposed studies, of which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 studies that studies and or designs that are before the committee. And I just wanted to alert folks that we will have to be going through the RFQ process on at least 5 of those. The Pollard locker rooms being the exception, where Doran Whittier is already doing the design work on that. The projects include a sound and light improvements at the theaters in the Newman School, the Pollard School, and the Needham High School. And I've been working to date with Ann Bellotti on that. And who is likely to be the other representative? Do you recall? Is it the person who's at the high school, who's head of
Performing Arts?
Yes, what's her name again?
Leanne Sutton.
Leanne, okay.
I think that's likely, but that's, I think that has yet to be determined.
Okay. And the timing on that, I guess the funding was approved in last year's budget, and it's just been slow on the startup. There has been some preliminary numbers, and I don't know if you want to discuss it at all. We have roughly 60,000 associated with design, and then potentially $600,000 relative to construction and improvements to those systems.
Yes, I think the 600,000 was based on a very preliminary early estimate of possible resulting costs. So the design will be informative as to whether that is low or high, and it's a little unclear what the budget might be for construction.
And so I think that one will be sort of the first priority that we proceed with.
Yeah, Hank, George, do you have your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Yes. Is there a scope of work that has been identified here for the study? We're looking at 3 different theater locations. And is it the same scope for each one? I haven't seen anything in writing on this. Is there such a scope, Hank?
Yeah, there is, that was developed.
We're sort of working on drafting that.
Yeah, we will share that with the committee. there was a
Okay.
one paragraph that was included in the appropriation, which is part of the 2021 appropriation. But we
Okay.
can share that with you.
I think that would be good because I personally would like to know what they're trying to get at here. Is this really something that can be managed? This could run into a lot of money and there's work that's been done on these things over the years. I don't know if this is changing it and what the reasons are. So a paragraph or two discussing the scope of work would be great.
Okay.
George?
Yeah?
With the chair's indulgence, I might be able to provide just some overview clarification. The scope of work for this study is intended to be the theatrical, limited scope for theatrical lighting and sound upgrades. It would not include upgrades to the seating, to the physical stage, the walls, the floor, things along those lines. It's really focused on the equipment required to operate theatrical sound and lighting, and of course, the lighting and the sound itself.
Right, and that's changed over the years, but that can be extremely expensive too. That's why I'd like to see what they're hoping to get out of the study.
Mhm. Thank you.
Right, we'll definitely share that scope with you, and we're developing that now. If we bring this back, I'll forward that scope in advance of the next meeting. And Anne, I think we need to work on a schedule. And then we'll come back to the committee to see whether the committee wants to appoint a subcommittee for the RFQ review of submittals, review and selection, or whether the full committee wants to participate in interviews. And I think that same principle will apply to each one of these studies. Then any other questions on that first one?
No.
Um,
George, you got your hand up. Is that you still?
No, I'm just taking it down.
Okay.
I'm a little slow on the.
That's okay. Just trying to make
hand up
sure
and
we
down.
cover everybody. All right, go ahead, Hank.
the library space study that was voted on at the most recent town meeting. There is a brief summary as to what they're expecting to do. Since there is the trustees of the Needham Public Library, there may be a member from that committee. Otherwise, it would likely be the new director of the library, who's the user representative, along with one other person they appoint. That study had a cost of $60,000. It's primarily to enhance the library student and tutor spaces. As you come in on the upper level of the library, there is a room at the far end, the far left, that's designated for young adults, and it's the function of that space has changed significantly over the time, and they're in excess of 50 students that come down to the library to do joint study and other things after the high school lets out on almost a daily basis. So there's interest and need to look at how some of that upper level is laid out and what ramifications that might have. There's also going to be a look at whether the digitization of books could perhaps supersede some of the collection that they have. And topics like that would be part of the overall study. Unless there are any questions on that one. We will have to go through an RFQ process. So again, the same question, whether the full committee wants to review that and make that selection, or whether a subcommittee would be appointed. Next one on the list is the Pollard locker rooms. Barry did a presentation with Dorn Whittier that one of the meetings prior to town meeting. And we raised the question as to whether it would be continue as a PBBC project, or whether it would be given back to the building maintenance department and have them follow through. That's a discussion we can have now or at a future point. I think in terms of schedule, the goal is to be in construction, not this summer, but the summer of 2023. And this project, like just about every other construction project, although there was funding for construction approved during the most recent town meeting, we really don't have a clue whether that'll be adequate by the time we come to the actual bidding and construction. So there may need to be some additional funding sought in May town meeting of 2023, and or some additional value engineering. Barry, do you have any specific comments?
I mean, that would be the case for any project that we pay somebody to estimate for us. We don't really know any of these costs. I don't know if we want to preface that for every contract or every project that we talk about. I have no other comments. And Dorn Whittier knows that it was approved. They are now starting to move forward with, putting pencil to paper. And then it doesn't make a difference as far as they're concerned, who's overseeing it, but they've already started working on the design. So they're moving forward with that.
And as they move forward, we could, within that budget, utilize Hill International to get a second opinion on the cost estimate once they get further along in their detailed drawings.
Is that a part of the was that in the scope?
No, it's I should say we have the resources on call for the project management company who did our second cost estimate for Ridge Hill and did the second cost estimate for Emery Grover. And if we want to get a secondary cost estimate for the locker rooms, that could be done. But it's really a future discussion.
Yeah, okay.
The next one on the list is the Public Works Facilities Improvement Study. That would be an update of the 2017 DPW master plan feasibility study. Again, we would have to go out to RFQ. The prior study and the work that Weston and Sampson completed on the Jack Cogswell building and on the fuel storage facility and on the other DPW storage building. All of that work has been complete, and so we would be forced to go back out to get an RFQ on that one. Timing on that, Karis Lustig is out for a couple more months on maternity leave, so that one likely wouldn't proceed until this fall. It would be a refresh, but I think also a relook at those facilities townwide to see if a distribution of those assets would make more sense. I would also take a look at the Daily building, which has had minimal, if no repairs, for at least 30 years. Any questions on that one? No. The CATH, or Senior Center Space Utilization Study, that was also approved by the annual town meeting. Oops. When I did the automatic pull down, all of these were May 2022. And the Council on Aging has noticed a overcrowding of certain areas within the building. They are very popular programs. I think that the intent is to look at the space, perhaps even look at enclosure in some fashion of the exterior porch, and bring that into year-round use as opposed to seasonal use, and other functions within the building. Also, I believe upgrading the kitchen is also on their wish list. Again, that would require an RFQ. And whether we would want somebody other than BH+A, who were the original designers, would be part of that evaluation process. And then finally on the list, the rooftop replacement, RTU replacement at Broadmeadow and Elliott, and funding that was appropriated for design in the last town meeting, with the anticipation of construction funding coming in the next year or two. And I suspect that we would have to go out to RFQ on that one, Barry, would we?
Yeah, definitely.
And I know from my work with the Climate Action Plan Committee, they will be likely requesting, on short order, requesting that the town look at the electrification of all future rooftop units and the transition away from greenhouse gas systems. And so I think that will need to be part of the study. That those recommendations would likely come in short order to the select board, along with hopefully an answer to this committee about goals set for climate action associated with all new town projects. And whether they're net zero or net zero ready, I think that the committee has been reviewing climate action plans for a half a dozen surrounding communities. And that seems to be the direction, which is also concurrent or coincident with and consistent with the state's goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But that'll be forthcoming. The third Climate Action Plan Committee meeting is next Monday. And any of you are welcome to join us.
George, you got your hand up?
Yes. I'm sure Hank has given this some thought, but there's a lot of work in getting all these studies accomplished. I think there's going to have to be some very careful planning as to when certain studies start and others and finish, especially in terms of priority in the town, plus utilization of resources. There's no way that the team that's on board now, which is essentially 2 people, is going to be able to accomplish all of this and continue to move everything forward. So I think one of the first things I'd like to see, and maybe you've already done this, Hank, is lay all this out on a schedule that says, you know, when should we do this study? When should we do that study? Can we put this study off for 6 months? Can we schedule them so that they're not all getting done at the same time by the same two people? And it might also say that we need help in getting someone on board to help us manage these studies.
Yeah, and we, I did have a discussion with town manager, with Kate this afternoon about that topic. They are in the process of where our staff got reduced. DPW is bringing on other project managers who were largely replacing people who left, like Joe Hobbs. And so Kate was indicating that for the Public Works Facilities project, for instance, one of the new DPW project managers might be able to assist with that. And if the Pollard locker rooms remains as a building maintenance department project, Paul Barry, I know, would love to come and give us updates. That one could move out of the agenda for this committee. And Barry, we would have to talk about the RTU replacement at Broadmeadow and Elliott and the urgency associated with that replacement.
I would add one more thing. So we just got our proposal from RFS for the upgrade to our BMS, for our controls, to an open architecture type software, which is still utilizing Schneider, which is most of our buildings. And that just came in, and that's about $1 million. So it's going to be another project that we have to talk about as far as who's going to oversee, you know, the evolution of this and the execution of that project. But so we just got back the proposals. It's going to have to be, I mean, it's obviously it's going to have to go to bid. We have a little bit more work to do on it, but this was something that we had put aside money for. It was only about $350,000 that Karis had put aside many years ago, long before COVID. Or before we actually, we brought somebody in to look at the building controls, but one more project that's going to be put on our plate here in a short amount of time.
And it can't just be run. Yeah.
George, we're losing you a little bit.
Pretty sophisticated. And I said, the average person isn't going to run that. You're going to need someone with some good experience. This is pretty sophisticated control system stuff. So I think you might even have to go outside, try to find somebody that has that background. That's why I wouldn't hesitate to see who we can put on the bench to do that. But that's going to be not a standard manage this particular activity.
You know,
Thanks, George.
we
Go ahead.
we do have the resources of Hill International. I'm sure they have people who have that type of expertise on other projects. So far, Barry, you've been relying on the commissioning agent, RFS.
Right, the same people that are commissioning some of the buildings that we're just putting online.
Are they doing the design documents as well?
That's something that we have to discuss as far as whether this is going to be an RFQ. It's most likely going to be an RFQ. So I hired RFS just to do the feasibility. Many years ago, we had E&E, who we currently use to help oversee our controls, kind of put a budget together. This is before I came on board. And it was just them thinking they were just going to walk in and upgrade the entire town. And I kind of saw what they did. I'm like, now we need to get somebody else to come in and do this third party kind of outside of E&E. So they did this. So what I'm going to, I'll send it over to you, Hank, tomorrow. Just a feasibility and a cost estimate for construction and materials. But there's no phasing involved. There's no schedule yet. It's really just kind of but it's a really good, what they did was they did a lot of good work to get to these numbers. So, but yeah, it's definitely going to have to be an RFQ.
I have one more
Michael's-
question, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that, is there any way that we could package a couple of these space studies and do them at the same time? So for example, could you put the library and the senior center in one RFQ and hire one firm to do both of these and maybe save some money by doing that?
Kind of unique expertise, is it not?
Yeah, I would agree
For
with you.
for the library and for the senior center, you know, they're similar projects. They're both space studies. They have some unique capabilities, but a good space planner or maybe even an architect could do this and have the capabilities on their team. I guess I'm wondering, is there a way to become a little more efficient and think outside the box when we're looking at a couple of these studies over the same period of time? It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, we'll think on that for a second. Michael, I know you've been waiting patiently. You got a question?
No, well, it's sort of an observation and maybe there may be a question, Dan, but I don't think so, though. I just want to remind that about a year ago, I worked with Hank and Stuart and then Natasha, who's then a member of this committee, to do a net zero presentation at which there was much support on this committee. And Stuart and I subsequently had a lot of follow-up conversations about how to get the select board to move forward to give this committee the support to look at and consider net zero ready without, you know, having to have a user agent be pushing for it. You know, we at the same time, Green Needham was moving forward with the climate action plan request. And I had several conversations with the two newest members of the select board. So, I mean, I think I feel very confident, and the members of the Climate Action Plan Committee, some of whom have been part of those discussions, that confident that kind of, I'm hoping that comes forward sooner rather than later. That would give this committee a little bit more confidence that it can be looking at these things up front as opposed to waiting or trying to ask for permission halfway through. I'd also mention that I know Hank Karras, and you were involved in this, Ed Quinlan, who's a 35-year veteran of the, you know, engineering space and is now on the Green Needham Steering Committee, did work with Karras to look at the Broadmeadow and Elliott with an eye to electrification. And, you know, obviously he saw quickly that there were some issues in terms of the temperature water that was used. And that was very helpful. And I think it will be important in dealing with the Climate Action Plan Committee, that if there are things that are really make it very difficult to do rooftop replacements that do not get rid of gas at this point, I think that will be important to bring that forward to the Climate Action Plan Committee and the other constituents. Plus, I think they will want to know if we are not able to do it now, what are our plans so that, you know, these buildings that we expect to still be in use in 2050 will be able to move to that point. And then finally, very briefly, is one point of indulgence, because you went through it pretty quickly and I couldn't get my hand up. I just, on behalf of the school committee, the administration, and every person who works in Emory Grover, I want to thank this committee for all that you have done over the past, you know, year and two plus as we've been working on the Emory Grover, and frankly, for all the work you've done historically. I think it's a tribute to that your chair didn't even have to get up and speak at this most recent meeting, and we're able to get the approval for the funding for this project. And I want to make sure you all know how much we appreciate the work that you do, and your success really made this possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. I would just say, Hank, I was going to second George's comment. I think we should have a timeline and lay these projects along a timeline. I would suggest either the next meeting or the meeting after, as we come back to the table, because I think there's some legitimate questions on the table in terms of what that timing looks like, what kind of demand it has on the committee or subcommittees and the approach we'd want to take. So I would ask if you could do that. I don't know if it makes sense to come back in 2 weeks or we've got, come back in 2 meetings from now. I'll leave it to you to decide, because there's a priority on some of these, but I would definitely second that and request that.
Okay. Well, yes, I'll work on that.
Okay. Is there anything else on this topic, Hank, you want to cover?
I don't think so, unless there are any questions.
Okay. All right. I know George got his hand up. I think it was from his previous question. Okay, so I'll close down that topic, and then we'll move to the. We're about 15 minutes behind, but I know we've got Nawari it has been sort of hanging out there. Do we want to? I suggest we just have a discussion about Nawari and where we are, and then we'll spend 15 minutes, and then we can wrap up from there. If I turn this to you, Lynn, or George, I think has stepped away, but I know you two were working on it and have brought something to the group.
I was just catching up because I was not at the meeting last 2 weeks ago when it was discussed in more detail, and I saw that some of the more aggressive suggestions were not taken. So I feel a little bit out of the loop in commenting on next steps because I wasn't in the conversation as to why we got there. But it sounded like we landed on a list of diverse candidates, and I believe that George said he was going to speak to the town manager about next steps. That was the last thing I saw, but again, I wasn't present for the conversation, so I'm not sure I should be the one speaking to it.
And any other committee member that was at the last meeting with this discussion could comment or help us in this discussion? Mr. Cream.
Stuart, yes, at that meeting, I think the minutes starting on page 3 that were approved earlier this evening, I think do provide a very good synopsis of how we got to where we are. There were things that we thought were achievable, some elements of the list of items that Lynn and George had kindly put together, and we just thought that some items were feasible, others were not for a variety of reasons. And so I think the minutes of the last meeting are a good starting place for this discussion.
George, any comments from you on the Nawari topic?
I'm sorry I missed it. I had to close because it was raining. Sorry about that.
I heard the rain, yep.
Summarizing the Nawari.
Yes, the topic is just the Nawari.
items.
Some of us weren't at the last meeting, and this is the last topic of today's agenda. And just wanted to get an update for a couple of minutes here, if it's worthwhile.
I think, I can't remember who was involved with the discussion, but I think that it was considered that there were a few items that were relatively easy to do and made a lot of sense to do, but I don't think there was any consensus that we should vote in favor of accepting Nawari in its full form, but that we could do those things without any problem. I think that was the conclusion that I think most of us came to in the discussion, and that we should do some of those things. Okay.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, and George, I believe you had said that following town meeting at some point when things settled down, you were going to reach out to the town manager on 1 or 2 items as well. That's my recollection.
Yes, and I haven't done that yet. Right. The one that I plan to Kate on is trying to determine whether or not we can get access to information about individuals in the town that might have, let's say, an engineering background or an architectural background or relevant to the committee, and whether or not they were diverse candidates.
Well, there are, and they're easy to find. We know, between Natasha and I, we could probably identify a dozen fairly easily. Architects and engineers, it's whether or not they'd be interested in serving is a different story, but.
And would also help to meet our diversity
Yes,
requirements.
correct.
Erwin, I know you're,
No, my sense is that we'd have to essentially just connect with people to find that out. I'm not sure there's any
That's
specific.
correct. I don't think she'll give you a listing of minority candidates living in Needham for our select.
No, I wasn't really looking for that. I'm just trying to find a way. There must be some people that they know that might be good diverse candidates, just by talking to people.
Yeah.
Maybe
I know
maybe-
several, and I'm sure that they would offer other candidates into the mix if they were asked, so.
Okay, well, maybe we can generate it ourselves, but I thought Kate is pretty well connected to almost all the committees in town and may have some suggestions too. So that's the only thing I was planning on doing. But we can generate the list ourselves.
I know, Erwin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just real quick, there was definitely a consensus to increase the diversity makeup of the committee. I think what the committee felt wasn't was a non-starter was the term limits and creating a specific slot for a diversity candidate. But I think the spirit of the discussion was definitely to broaden the makeup of the committee and further the intent when we speak with contractors or architects that we would want them to present teams that would be more diverse than what we've possibly seen in the past. That's kind of what I remember as standing out from the discussion.
I'm just trying to figure out from the chair's position if we need to take any more formal action, whether it's we need to just take what was discussed last time and now discussed today with the diversity candidates and just place that into a sort of a sequence when we need to fill a seat, we take a priority. Do we need to vote on anything? I'm just trying to figure out, other than just the update, what do we need to do? I know it's a very difficult subject, and we've as much as I like to make it very clear, I'm not sure it is clear. So I'm looking for the committee's input at this point of any actions we need to take, or do we feel that where we are with what we've discovered is enough at this point? We'll come back to the topic. And Roy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think Henry has his hand up first. Hank?
Okay, well, one question is whether the MBE, WBE requirement, or what is now a goal, whether that becomes a requirement in future bids, particularly the Emery Grover project, that'd be the next largest project coming forward, and whether that becomes a requirement, not just a request or a goal, in selection of future designers. It was required on the MSBA project because it had state funding. The town has typically made it as a goal and not as a requirement. So that would be a question for the committee to ponder. And I think before we go out to those bids, probably by July timeframe, we would need to have that built into the specifications.
I think that you can make it a goal, but you can also, by the way you stated in the requests for bids, you can really emphasize that you're going to be looking at that very clearly to see how they respond to it. And you're going to, maybe there's some way of of saying we're going to give extra points for people that do meet, help us meet the diversity requirements. You know, you can do more than just say a goal is to try to improve WBE and so forth. You know, we do the best we can with those, but I'm suggesting some wording that encourages a little better action than that. And maybe we can say that when we put it into RFQs. We've got a bunch of RFQs coming up, and we've got other bids as well. I guess I would not want to just sit back and kind of do the same old thing, because that's really doesn't accomplish anything. I think maybe we ought to look at what kind of wording would we put in to make a stronger commitment to diversity requirements on our projects and on our studies.
I know, Roy, you have your hand up, but I know Lynn, I can see her ready to respond to George's. So if I may, can I just let Lynn go and respond to George's comment? Because I think there's a fair statement about, you know, how far you can go with emphasizing something in a bid document like that. But Lynn, go ahead.
It needs teeth. I mean, you can't just put words in a document and then not have a follow through. So your comment about adding additional points or taking points away, I think is strong. Otherwise, you need to set a standard and beyond a goal and say the expectation is this percentage is going to be there. That's not unusual in any public bid. Because you're then you're putting the onus on the selection committee to make a judgment call whether or not their expertise or their smiley faces or whatever are better than somebody else who made the effort to meet the goal or to embrace the effort of the goal. And so
I agree with you.
To me, it's got to be stated very clearly, so there is no question when it comes down to the top three candidates. They all met the requirements, and that's the minimum expectation of the committee, because it gets too wishy-washy in selection if you don't have specifics. I think we're taking, I'm not a soft approach person, and I think we're taking a soft approach if we do that. I also don't agree with the comment that was made earlier that we're creating a space for a diversity person. We are starting the ball rolling. If we create a space for somebody who looks more diverse than everybody on the screen, and hopefully 20 years from now, it looks more diverse than this. That's all we're saying. So it's not creating a seat, it's creating an opening.
Roy?
Yeah, I'm just very cautious on how a bunch of folks like us talk about this and articulate this and put it in action so that it's authentic. You know, I think that Nuwari was just trying to get an essence of going forward with intentionality. And we don't want to agree with that, and for lots of good reasons that people have. But I want to be really careful about the language we're going to use. You know, I don't think this is a voting matter. I think this is a practical matter. If the town puts in restrictions or rules, I'll follow those rules, and you know, that's clear. But I don't think it's this committee, nor do we have the expertise to talk about how to design this in a way, or at least I don't. So I'm very cautious. I just want to articulate that, you know, we're going around in circles on this for a long time. We should always be focusing on these items. And I think we're more aware of it. And that was the point, I think, of Nuwari.
Okay. Erwin?
Yeah, I wanted to say something similar to Roy. I'm not sure legally what we can do to require a certain makeup for selection. So whatever, I guess it's back to what Roy said. I guess we have to be very careful how we word these things, and I don't have enough knowledge about how to do that. As far as I think the comment Lynn made was directed at me, I might have misunderstood, but I thought one of the proposals was to designate one of the seats on the board, on the PVBC for a diverse candidate. And if that wasn't the intent, then I didn't mean to say what I said. But again, I'm trying to recall what we said during our discussion. I thought that was the impression I was under. And if you're saying it wasn't to create a slot, it was to create an opportunity, then I'm fine with that.
Okay, thanks, Erwin.
I tend to agree with what you guys are saying, but I think there's examples of it all over the place. And I mean, if we have to make a recommendation to the town about what we think they should be doing for the RFPs, then we could do that if we can't make that decision on our own. But the state requires 17.9%. It is what it is. It's a very straightforward number. And if you just adopted what the state adopted for the town, I don't think it's a big leap. But if we can't do that without asking the town to approve it, then that's a different story, and we'd have to.
Lynn, I just want to say, if we have a structure that we can follow, that like that the state is using, and that makes sense, then that's easy for me, right? That's easier. But
Yep.
my point is, I don't know that, and so I'd rather follow an existing structure than
Yep.
make one up. I
If we
appreciate your
follow-
language.
Yeah, if we
Yeah.
follow the state structure, some institutions do more than that, but if we follow the general state structure, it's very straightforward. And it does WB, MBE, disability, veterans and women's, et cetera.
Okay. At this stage, on the top of the hour, I'd like to just summarize it. It sounds like one is we're continuing to look at the Nawari discussion and having the discussion. Second, we've got on the table, we've got in our discussion, as seats come available, we just are more aware and working on trying to ask the diversification question, and see if we can put some emphasis behind it through action. And lastly, that looking at the bidding process, and particularly Emery Grover that's coming up, is could we actually make a more definitive move in that process to, I'm not going to use the right acronyms, MBE, but basically minority business, women-owned business, and make more emphasis in that process. I think that last bit, we should come back to that, Catherine, if I can, and Hank, on the agenda of the next meeting, because if we are going to go to Emery Grover, I think we need to really bring this back to the table and ask ourselves, and maybe from now till then, ask the committee, think about it. What do we need to do to make it have more teeth in that process? So those are the three things I picked up from this conversation. We're at the top of the hour. Unless there's any other commentary or questions, I would bring a close to this segment of the agenda.
Just have one other comment. I do believe that it is within our power to make a decision as to how we're going to evaluate RFQs or RFPs. We accept that we have to do that ahead of time, of course, and let people know how they're going to be evaluated. But I believe that is part of we might want to, run it past the legal counsel, but I'm going to say that in most cases, it's our responsibility to figure out what that is. And we can be consistent with what we've done in the past. We can add things, we can put more emphasis on certain things. I don't think that's a problem, but.
Okay. Hank?
Yeah, I mean, we basically will follow the process we did with Sunita Williams. We went through that in the selection for the designer. We went through that in the award for the contractor. And we followed up during the project at the midpoint, and things got adjusted and they met the goals. The goals have shifted slightly since then. but it's a process the town has followed before. And it's a process that every single state project goes through.
I want to end this meeting as soon as we all can, but the only thing I'll add to that is I think in the solicitation process of getting things out, we need to be intentional about making sure that it goes out to a diverse group of contractors and it isn't just seen by the usual suspects. Then that may take some cost and some energy by the town to make sure we put it out there and network it. That's all I'd ask.
Great. Okay, so I said, I think the most immediate action is the next meeting is just to come back to the Emery Grover bidding process and see what more affirmative action we could take, what that might be. And I know you said, Hank, in terms of Sunita Williams and the evaluation process, and we have forms. That's great, but I think we should, as a committee, just decide if there's anything particularly we should put in that process as it goes out to bid. Okay. With that, is there any other business, Catherine, anything else that we need? Oh, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, two quick administrative items. First of all, I'm not sure everyone who's now in attendance actually voted on the minutes earlier tonight. I'd like to ask you through you, Erwin, did you have a chance to vote on the minutes at the outset of the meeting? I don't recall.
No, I did
seeing-
not.
I think it would be advisable, Mr. Chair, to have a ratification vote of the minutes, just simply so that everyone is on record who was in attendance at that meeting. Is on
So
record
that
as,
would be a motion to
ratify the approval
ratify
of the minutes of
the meeting
April
minutes
26th.
from the previous meeting.
Right.
And do we take do we take a revote, Richard?
Yes.
Or is that just, okay, all right. So for those that were here, the last meeting, I believe that was you, Richard, Jean, Roy,
No, George, I think, and Erwin.
and
And
Erwin.
Jean.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
okay. So I'll go down the list, and if I call you and you're not there, you can just abstain. Fair enough?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go for the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
I,
Roy, abstain, right?
Same.
Yeah, Lynn is abstain. George,
Aye.
Erwin,
I guess I got to vote aye now.
You don't have to.
excellent. So I think that's a quorum, right? 4 out of 7?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
Good
Mr. Chairman, I have
call.
one other item as well. I had mentioned a couple of meetings ago that my office was contemplating starting up being back in the building and not working remotely, or at least some maybe a hybrid situation. That was postponed from May 1st because of the uptick in COVID situation. Now they're talking about May 31st. If that does come to pass, it's going to be a hybrid format, probably on a rotating basis when we'll be going in 2 or 3 days a week. The bottom line is that the 7 o'clock meeting start time would be problematic for me going forward, depending upon the date. And again, I won't know that until I have some clarity on what the rotation is going to look like and if there's any predictability to it. So, so with all that, I think we can probably squeeze out one more 7 o'clock session, but I think after that we'll have to consider 7:30 because I don't think I'll be able to make a 7 o'clock meeting, given the train schedule, which is not the way it was. They don't have peak hourly service anymore. It's now hourly service throughout the day. So.
Okay, so why don't you let us know, Richard, and then if the committee would be so kind is that we stick with the next meeting, and then depending on Richard's schedule, we can swing and just be agile if it comes up sooner.
Right.
And is everybody okay with the 7:30 if we had to go to a 7:30? Because that's what it was before.
And I think just one other point, Mr. Chair, and that is that I think we had gone with the 7 o'clock format for as long as we were remote. And I think now that it appears that live and in-person meetings will be are in the offing, we'll be going back to the library, et cetera. And I guess in July, I think at that point, I would certainly, I think I would recommend 7:30 start time for those meetings.
Yeah, and do we know whether we are going to be the governor is going to ratify or lapse the current bill? And that
We-
would
we
put us
don't
back
know.
into-
I think last time they did it at the 11th hour, as I recall. And Catherine, is that correct? I think it was very close to the deadline. If they extended it.
It was
If I'm not
pretty
mis-
close.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we'll just have to pay attention to that. Okay,
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
all right, thank you. Thank you for bringing those up. Anything else for anybody? Okay, so with that, I will bring a close to tonight's PVC meeting. Thank you.
Go Celtics.
There you go. That's tomorrow. Hey, Catherine.
Yep.
Catherine, I can do the invoices tomorrow.
Okay.
If